Hey everyone. I was just thinking of this quote. It was in my back of my head. It's life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And I thought I'd mention that in this video, although I figured I should research the quote first to see if it was really a religious quote at all, because I've heard it used by Christians, and it was actually attributed to John Lennon from his song Beautiful Boy. And it can be traced back 2 decades before that to a Reader's Digest article in 1957. But I had a different impression of what it meant. And that's what I'd like to somewhat discuss in a way. The idea that life is here to prepare us for something greater afterwards. You know, I think that that's a noble idea. I wouldn't say noble is the right word. I would say that that's a comforting idea. To think that once we pass and move on, that we, you know, incorporate ourselves into other realms and whatnot. And so be it. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But I think what we're missing is the main point of right now. This is the life that we have. In other words, people could argue all day philosophically about what may or may not exist after death. But the one thing we can agree on is that we are alive now. Now there are a group of people who make the argument that we're in some sort of a simulation or a delusion, or in our minds, or like the Matrix type attitude. In fact, some really great thinkers believe this. Even actually Tesla, the Tesla Motors guy, what's his name? I can't remember his name right now. He believes that you know, we're in a simulation, and I think that it's the belief that we are in a simulation is a disease of the mind caused by too much intelligence or too much thinking. In other words, we can sit and give ideas about, well, this is the mathematical chance that we might not exist. Well, maybe the universe is infinite. No, the universe is a bubble and it's finite, but there are multiverses, and oh, well, what are those multiverses in? Maybe a larger multiverse, and you can't split the atom any farther down beyond quarks. Oh yes, you can, and it goes on and on to the macro and the micro. And I guess what I'm getting at is that people are so confused about how to live life now that they're looking for answers to what might happen later. Yeah, it's kind of like you've already resigned yourself to, you know, oh well, this ain't working out, I'm just going to do something else and look to my future. And I'm not saying all religion's this way, nor am I even just talking about religion. It happens in this life. The idea that, well, when I'm in my 50s, I'll go out and experience all these things. Or I'll do all this stuff later, you know. Our society makes us believe that we have to bust our ass to make a lot of money, and then we retire, and then we're happy. And that if you don't fit some sort of a status that, you know, or if you don't fit some sort of a you know, play the system, you know, within the system, that you're just an outcast or an outsider. Or, oh, you know, these people aren't. I could go on. I guess it's not worth even addressing that issue, the fact of what other people think, because ultimately, regardless of how we judge each other, you know, it really comes down to how we feel inside as individuals. So if you're the kind of person who feels like everyone else is judging you, even if you're being judged a lot of the time, when you remove yourself from that and you're by yourself, don't think about it. Don't give energy. Don't waste energy on people who are judgmental or are telling you to live your life a different way. To me, living life is about experiences, and experiences now. This doesn't mean that we can just go out and have fun all the time, of course. I have my, you know, shortcomings when it comes to, you know, being kind of a party pooper. Like, I'm in the bus. I didn't want to take the bus to the Dead show. I'm going to you know, the Dead and Company show tomorrow in the Gorge. Well, it's Friday, but we're going to camp tomorrow and the next night at the Gorge Amphitheater, and then we're driving down to Eugene. And my wife wanted to take the bus, the school bus I'm in, which we just bought and remodeled just for this kind of stuff. And I said, well, I was worried that it might not make it up the hills very well, that it might break down, all these things. And then I thought about it for a couple of days, and I woke up this morning thinking, how weak. As if I'm going to look back in 20 years and think, oh, you know, I wish I would have taken that bus to that Dead show. I mean, after all, the Grateful Dead shows that I went to in the 90s were what inspired me to want a bus in the first place. And now here I am with a bus, and it's like playing the adult game, being responsible. Oh, I don't want to break down, or oh, we better, you know, make sure that everything's planned out ahead of time. And I'll tell you, I'm not a planner. I'm not a planner in this life, and I sure as hell am not a planner for the next life, if there is one. So I'm not going to worry about whether or not I have to live some sort of a standard within a community that will give me a happy afterlife. The one thing you can't scare me with is the afterlife. You can't scare me with karma. You can't, actually, there's a lot of things you can't scare me with. If I were to try to pick out the things that I am actually fearful of, sure, you know, the death is one of them. You know, if we don't embrace that and acknowledge it, we're completely in denial. I've I've heard people defend it that say, I'm not afraid of death, I'm just afraid of how I might die. And I think, you know, I guess that makes sense, but, you know, what's the worst that could happen? You drown? Doesn't last long. What, you burn alive? You know, your endorphins kick in, and, you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, sure, the extreme, we could be tortured to death. And I know this sounds harsh, but it's the type of thing that I feel like we need to talk about on a regular basis. Mortality. When my friends and I are laying around tripping together or something, you know, I always like to bring up, you know, say, hey dude, you're gonna die one day. And it's kind of a joke, you know, like within my mind, I guess, and a couple of my friends that I joke around with, and they're kind of like uneasy about it, but, you know, it's like, hey, I don't want to think about that. Well, you know, nobody does. But what's the worst that could happen is really what you're after. I think that in this life, ultimately, in this society we have, that was kind of a mindset as well for criminals. Not just people who aren't criminals or just living their life, but a criminal thinks the same way. And not just a criminal, but somebody who oppresses others or steals from others, you know, harms other people in the process of getting theirs. And they think, well, you know, I only got this one life, screw it. I'm not going to let other people's, you know, lives worry me about mine. And I think this is where people lose touch. But this is also where society comes up with laws and regulations and to try to discourage that type of attitude, if you will. So what happened was we created religion and the idea of karma to help people to try to feel as if those who are doing wrong will get theirs. How, you know, even if this person escaped a mass murderer and then they escaped and never got caught, they will pay in the next life. And I think that that's you know, a noble thought, and it's a great idea. But ultimately, I don't think that individuals pay the price. I think that it's the entirety, the whole, that pays the price. So to convey a message out of that, it would be that instead of having the attitude that, well, they'll get theirs, we need to make sure that they get theirs now, which is why we have things in controversies, let's say like the death penalty. Some people think it's just horrible, and other people think, no, it's totally justified if you kill someone else. Or prison itself, the idea of locking people away, it's a very strange thing. You know, in a way, it protects some people, but it ends up harming more than it protects by far, because it puts away people for doing substances that they choose to put in their bodies, that type of thing. So nothing's perfect. The system isn't perfect. It never will be. It never has been, because the system is inherently flawed by the fact that it's created by us. So if we could delve into the depths of what are humans supposed to be doing, maybe we'd have a different outlook on that. I don't know. But time changes. Time passes quickly. So to come full circle here, I'd like to say that the most important thing in life is to have those experiences. Because I don't remember the days when I sat at home doing nothing. I don't remember just the times when I had money or had things. I remember the times when I was at a show or at an event or going to a fair or out with my family. And that's why I try to get out and do these things. It's very important, you know, experience. It's what we have. And, you know, I started doing YouTube videos, what, 7 years ago now, and looking at myself in the phone camera there, I can see that I got some white in the beard, getting a little frosty. And it's weird how times change, you know. It's just yesterday I started making YouTube videos, and here I am, you know, turning into an old man. Who knows where the future will lead. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. As good as you can, anyway.